Hi everyone, Sandy here. This week we are looking at the question of how long everything takes on the actual wedding day itself, and perhaps the day before and the day after, but particularly the wedding day itself. And I get a lot of questions about how to schedule for that day. Well, I think the first two important things to say up front are, one, everything on the day will take at least twice as long as you think it's going to. That might sound over the top, but honestly, just think about it. People are starting to arrive. Everybody wants to congratulate you. Everybody wants to give you a hug, possibly give you a drink. Everything takes much longer than you think it's going to, so build that time in. I think the second thing to say is that if you don't have a written schedule, you are much less likely to stick to the kind of timings that you have in your head, if they even are in your head. So having a schedule won't necessarily mean that you will stick to it 100%, but you are far, far more likely to. So how and when do you start to put this schedule together? And what do I actually mean by a schedule? It can be as simple as a little bullet pointed list in a notebook. It doesn't need to be a complicated multicoloured spreadsheet. Mine are, because I'm a bit of a control freak. But it doesn't have to be that. It can be a very, very simple plan that you and your wedding team and your suppliers have in your hands and can adhere to. When I say you, not you on the wedding day, of course. So how and when do you start to put it together? Absolutely not a week before the wedding. What you want to be doing is as soon as everything gets booked in, so when you book your venue, when you book your ceremony, those very first things, start to build your schedule. And that way, as you book each supplier, you can put their timings in. You can ask them, okay, so our ceremony at church is going to be at 12 o'clock noon. When are you planning to come and do the flowers, and when might flowers, if they're being moved, be moved from church to reception venue if you are reusing some of the flowers there. And catering, when, if we're eating at 4 p.m, are you going to lay up? When are staff going to be there? When will there be a call for dinner? When will people actually sit down? How long will it take? You can just start to build those things in. That way, when you get to about a month before the wedding, it's not a mammoth task. It's actually quite easy. You're basically going back to the people that you've already asked and double checking. So start to build it right from the beginning. Now, what are you going to include? You don't have to include that much. As a wedding planner, my day schedules have a ridiculous amount of detail in them, and you will want probably more than your venue has in theirs, but you don't have to have a silly amount of information. You want the key timings in particular. So everybody's anticipated time of arrival, everybody's anticipated time of departure. So let's say you've got a string quartet coming to play over the drinks reception for an hour and a half. They are probably going to need half an hour to set up before they actually start playing. They might have a break. They might need a drink or a cup of tea or what have you in the middle of their sets. And then they'll be leaving, perhaps 2 hours after they have arrived. So you're building those sorts of things into your schedule. You also want to include, once you've got the basic timings, think back. So for example, if you are leaving for church or your civil ceremony venue at 11:30 in the morning, that's when you're actually going to leave to get there, and the church is, let's say, 20 minutes away, which makes sense if you're getting married at, let's say, 12 noon. What timings do you need to put in the morning in order to hit that deadline of leaving at 11:30? So you're going to be talking, if you're having hair and makeup people come to the house, you're going to be talking to those people about how long it takes to do your hair and makeup. You need to think about getting into your dress. You need to talk to your photographer about how long he or she needs with you at the house. If you're having photographs taken there, so that it's not a mad rush and that you've built in lots and lots of time throughout the day. So yes, arrival and departure times, basic running order, what needs to happen in order to hit that running order. I would also build into your schedule, what I tend to do is actually have two. I will have what I call a kind of master copy, which is my version, and if I'm working one-to-one with a client, obviously the client sees that. And then I have a version which goes to everybody else. Why? Because there will be things on the master copy, and you will want your master copy, which either are completely irrelevant to other people or absolutely really shouldn't be seen by them. So there might be things on there like, don't forget to go to the toilet. You don't want to go into your wedding breakfast and do, you'll be clapped in with your new husband or wife, sit down, and then 5 minutes later think, oh, I really need to pop to the bathroom. So you might want to put things like that on. You don't want everybody reading that. You might have an envelope of cash, perhaps, for anybody that needs to be paid cash on the day. That's fairly unlikely these days, but occasionally you might get that with, say, a band, if you've got 6, 7, 8 different band members and they're all going off around different parts of the country, possibly even abroad. Sometimes the band leader will say, actually, it's a lot easier if I can just divvy up cash. You don't want, you will have a line on your schedule to say, pay the band, but you don't want other people knowing that you've perhaps got a wad of cash sitting around in an envelope somewhere. So those are the kinds of things that you need to think about having as notes to self. You might have medication that you need to take. You might have children and you need to remember to do a quick nappy change before the wedding breakfast begins. These are all things which obviously on a day-to-day basis you do without thinking, but actually on the wedding day it's worth having them on your schedule because it's easy to forget when the adrenaline is running and what have you. So when it comes down to the basic timings for the day, as I said, yes, it does vary from wedding to wedding depending on all sorts of things, not least of all the type of ceremony that you're having, the distance that your reception venue is from your ceremony, and really importantly, the number of guests that you have. But as a kind of benchmark, ceremony-wise, church ceremonies generally take around 45 minutes. Roman Catholic ceremonies, particularly if you're having a nuptial mass, will take longer than a Church of England or an Anglican ceremony. And a civil ceremony, assuming that you have injected some personalisation, so some music, perhaps a reading or two, is generally around half an hour. Without those, by the way, it is 10-15 minutes. So generally people want to inject some of that into there. People then generally go on to a drinks reception, which is around 90 minutes. That allows for lots of photographs. It allows for people to start to relax. Any more than 90 minutes and people tend to get a little bit twitchy, so I would aim for around 90 minutes, but always talk to your suppliers, talk to your venue, talk to your caterer, talk to whoever is actually serving those drinks, because they will be able to advise you as well. Wedding breakfast, again, varies depending what you're having, but if you're having a fairly traditional sit-down meal, whether it's plated, whether it's silver service, whether it's buffet, I would say between 2 to 2.5 hours. Speeches, again, as you can imagine, as long as a piece of string. I would advise that you ask speakers to give you an idea of how long they're going to speak for, or if you think they're going to, shall we say, waffle on a bit, give them a period of time for their speech. Otherwise, this can really, really go on. So whenever in the day you are having speeches, whether it's the traditional time, which is after the wedding breakfast, or whether, as many do these days, you're having them before the wedding breakfast, I would say half an hour is a great amount of time for speeches. People are happy, people are engaged, people are laughing, but it's not too long a period of time to wait. Cake cutting, generally around 5 minutes. First dance, generally around 5 minutes. Again, it depends when in the day you are doing these things. A lot of my clients choose to do this as they go onto the dance floor first thing in the evening. That way you are only calling people together once. So you're getting everybody up towards the dance floor, the cake is cut, then you go into first dance, and then lo and behold, everybody is standing up. You have a much better likelihood of people actually getting up on the dance floor with you. And then of course carriages, whenever, that will be dictated by your venue, almost certainly, unless you're in a dry hire space where you can go on all night. But normally there will be a time when your amplified music goes off, a time when all music goes off, and then a final time when everybody must be off site. So I hope that helps a little with how long things take and with putting your schedule together. If you've got any questions, come over into the Facebook group, or you can always email me at sandy@turnevents.com. Thanks, everybody.